The Brothers Mysterium. Bonus content.
Hello and welcome to The Brothers Mysterium bonus content. And today we have kind of a follow-up to a follow-up episode. In Season 1, Episode 10, we did Dream Visitations, had some great guests sharing stories of their deceased loved ones, friends, family, visiting them from beyond the grave in their dreams. Several months after recording that episode, I myself had a dream visitation, so we recorded that and then released that as a short little bonus episode. And since then, we've had many listeners email us, message us on Facebook, tweet us with their own experiences. So we will close the book on dream visitations after this. We are always down to investigate topics. If you have a dream visitation you want to share, you can still reach out to us. But this is kind of going to be the last episode for a while on dream visitations. However, a part of the show that we love is the more we discuss a topic, the more people kind of open up about sharing their own experiences. They don't feel weird. They don't feel judged. They don't feel strange. Or maybe they, in their mind, were always like, oh, that was a weird dream. And now it has a name and it has all of the attributes of a dream visitation. They realize, wow, I did have one of these. So it's cool to open up people's minds, make them more comfortable with what they've experienced. And another thing we love is the interactivity where listeners can literally join the conversation, come on the show, share their stories. So that's what this bonus episode is going to be, some dream visitation experiences from listeners.
Hey guys, my name is Daniel. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I just wanted to give y'all my story on dream visitations. I know y'all did a podcast on it a while back, and I think that I did have some, and like y'all, I'm a skeptic, so part of me thinks, maybe some of it's my brain trying to cope with things, but at the same time, they're pretty interesting dreams. My grandmother passed away in July of 2012, and we were really close, and towards the end of her life, I was kind of her, in a sense, her caretaker, taking her to her appointments and stuff, and she had gotten sick a few times, and probably should have passed, years before she did, but she just kept pulling through and always did really great, but she finally got sick this one time, and that was pretty much it. She had problems with her heart, and it was just kind of a domino effect. Everything started failing, and it all happened really quick, within a day. She walked in the hospital, and that night, she passed away. It's something I'm always going to remember. We got to be with her. The doctors, it was really weird because they had kind of done their thing to stabilize her, and I was one of the last people to talk to her while she was conscious, and they, like I said, they did their thing and put her in the ICU, and that was it. It was like, it was late at night, probably midnight. And we were just in there with her, and I remember it was storming really hard outside. And I just thought it was interesting how she's, we're going through this trial, and outside it's storming and stuff. And, she wasn't doing good. And maybe an hour or two later, the nurse comes in, and he says, she's about to go because her vitals started acting weird, and they were already horrible. And he comes in, just says, yeah, she's getting ready to go, and he leaves. And sure enough, a minute or so, she was gone. And it was something, that I'll always remember. And so about a couple weeks after that, I had a dream, and we were in the same hospital room. It was just me and her, and the difference was it was morning time. The sun was coming up. It was a really nice day. when the sun rises, you have this real golden light, and the light was just shining through real beautiful. And she was there, and just, she was okay, just completely healed, and just kind of smiling and talking with me. And that was 4 years ago, and I didn't even write that dream down back then, and it's still something that's stuck with me this whole time. It's the thing where I think maybe it's my brain coping or whichever, and that's still what I don't know. That's just the way it is, and something that leads me to think that it is a visitation is a couple months ago, my other grandma got really sick. She had kind of the same problems. Her heart was giving her trouble, and the doctors just basically gave her days to live. And she ended up having this procedure, which we were really scared about, because we weren't sure. The likelihood of her coming out of it was really, really small. And I remember during that time I had a dream about my other grandma, and we were in the hospital hallway that my living grandmother was in, and I saw her, and she was just kind of there at the end of the hall, and I came up to her, and I kind of knew it was a dream, and when I dream about her, I always right away would go to her and hug her and talk to her a little bit. And so I, went and hugged her, and she said, it's going to be tough, but she's going to be okay. And, that was kind of the dream. I remember I asked her things about life, and I remember she just smiled at me, and that was the end of the dream. So this time I'm thinking, what does she mean? Does she mean, it's going to be hard on us? My grandma's going to pass, but everything's going to be okay, or what? And, it turns out my grandmother made it through the surgery and was still pretty weak, but it's been almost, 5 or 6 months now, and she's been improving, and she's not what she was before, but she's much better. So I just thought that was pretty interesting to have that interaction where she tells me it's going to be okay, and I just think it was pretty neat. Another dream I've had with her was, I was in a waiting room, and she just kind of like slowly faded in and was in front of me, and I stood up and hugged her, and I just said, hey, where have you been? I haven't seen you, and I can still hear it in her voice. It's like she was talking to me in person. I hear her voice saying it. She said, "Oh, I've been here. I've been with you." And I could almost hear like the hurt in her voice, like she, like we were talking to each other, and that was one that kind of stuck with me. And we were together, and she was kind of going around showing me places, like I was in third person where I could see myself, and she would be there showing me like kind of like watching a movie, like, see, that's you, and I'm over here watching over you. And I thought that was pretty neat. But the part where I'm kind of skeptical about it is they were places that I haven't or hadn't been before. I know one, it kind of looked like a subway we were in. It could have been a bus, but it looked more like a subway. And here in San Antonio, we don't have anything like that. But, who knows? And my sister ended up having a pretty neat dream too right after my grandma passed. She, when we were little, my grandma would drive us around, take us to the park or, whatever, just to go have fun. And she quit driving years before she passed away. But in this dream, me and my sister and my cousins were in the car with her, and she was just showing us around, but really just driving us around the city. And my sister said that, she asked, she said, when are we going to do this again? Or when are you going to come get us? And my grandma told her, I'm sorry, I can't, this is going to be it. I won't be able to do it again. And so that was a story my sister said, and it's nothing, of course, I didn't have that dream, so it would have been cool if I had the perspective of me being in there, but it didn't work out that way. Like I said, I'm skeptical like you guys. Again, I love y'all's show, and I really appreciate, the skeptics, instead of having someone say, yes, this is a ghost, this is paranormal. I like the idea of wondering, is it, and kind of going from there. It's more believable to me as opposed to just someone saying they've got hard evidence. So those are kind of my stories. I hope maybe it might be of use to you all. Thanks again, and if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Bye.
Okay, and we're rolling.
Shall I begin or shall you?
We'll start with Daniel's story, right?
Correct.
Okay. Definitely first thing I noticed, it hits on all the classic points of a dream visitation.
It does indeed. When he saw his grandmother, it was kind of a cool paradox, if that's the word I'm looking for, which it probably isn't. Not juxtaposition.
What are you looking to say?
How, when she was sick and dying, it was, in his first encounter, it was, thundering outside and stormy, and she passed away. And then a couple weeks later, he has the dream. And they're in the same room, but now it's sunny, it's bright.
I guess you could call it a contrast.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. So it's a contrast, but again, like you were saying, one of the classic signs is she's kind of healthy. Well, not kind of, she is. She's healthy, she's happy, she's in better shape than the last time I saw each other.
Yeah.
He also makes a point to say, he didn't write this down. He just remembers it so vividly,
Which
so
is
clearly.
Point 2 of a dream visitation is the
Exactly, the
how vivid it is
memorability.
and how it's big. But going back to, what we said in the original dream visitation episode is that they do appear healthy, the people who come through, and there's never, bones or horror or...
No, it's not spooky usually. You get a sense of closure. A lot of times, too, they will appear even younger. So even if you saw them and she had, all gray hair and she was covered in liver spots and no teeth and stuff.
Okay.
When he sees her, at this time, she's happy, she's healthy. And if you haven't, just a reminder to go back and listen to episode 10, Dream Visitations.
Indeed. Also, the one thing I really liked about this story is that this was the first one where we really had a message.
Like a real message?
Like a prophetic message.
Oh,
where later on down the road. I mean, I'm kind of conflating all the stories together here.
That's true. Well, yeah, one thing I'll say, which I liked, is he was kind of in the same boat as me, and I believe as you, where he was like, I think I've had dream visitations, but it could have just been my subconscious. So he has that healthy skepticism.
Right.
But what I found interesting is he's had dream visitations, 3 that he shares, 3, but they're all with the same woman. So he has had a series with the same person, and actually his sister even had one, which we'll touch on that.
Which is the interesting thing that you and I have in common, too, is that the dream visitations we've both had, or, say we may have had, they could just be dreams, all involve Aunt W.
Correct. And as you had touched on, and it was cool because his second dream, when his other grandmother, who's still alive, is sick and has to get the surgery,
right.
The original grandmother appeared in his dream and said, she'll be okay. It might be tough, but she'll be okay.
Right.
And lo and behold, she gets the surgery, and she is, as of now, steadily recovering. She's not 100%, but she made it through. She is, improving.
Right.
So that prophetic dream turned out to be true. But like you said, it was cool that she delivered that message about the other grandma.
Yeah, because that was something we had touched on in the original Dream Visitations episode, but no one really had that prophetic kind of message going. Like, you know, people got the old, I'm okay now, things are good, you can rest easy. But no one ever had, like, the...
A future message.
Yeah, exactly. Forecasting kind of thing.
What's fascinating to me that I want to follow up on, too, is in the third one is kind of the most abstract one, where he's in this weird waiting room, and he says to her kind of like, where have you been? And she's like, oh, I've been with you. And she kind of does this almost like Scrooge-esque montage of, like, these moments in his life where he can see himself and she's standing next to him.
Right, out of body kind of.
What's cool is he said some of the places he had never been, like that subway type scene.
Yeah.
And he's like, I knew it was a subway and we're waiting, but there are none of those around where he lives. So I'd be interested, like, is at some point he going to come down to, you know, visit New York, come down the stairs and go, oh my God, this is the subway from my dream.
Right.
So maybe that was in some way prophetic, but cool nonetheless.
I wonder about where his grandma was from, too. Like, was she taking him through past scenarios from her life? Did she grow up in New York or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it was cool. And then we did allow, which sometimes we will, under the right circumstances, a non-first person story, which was his sister's, which is they have a dream where they're in the car, and another kind of message, the sister says, hey, you know, when are you going to drive us around again? And she's like, oh, this is the last time. I can't do this anymore. Which is sort of kind of a way of saying goodbye, wrapping things up, because they used to go for drives with the grandmother. But the reason I thought we should include it is because it ties back into my dream visitation. And as I said, I had heard another dream visitation from somebody else that also involved being in a car and driving and motion. We even had some people in episode 10 talk about they're on a bus, they're on a train, and the individual was, you know, always with them in a different seat or something, but always present. So there could be no connection at all, but I'm wondering, it caught me because it's like, is there something with motion, with movement, with vehicles? Oh, and actually, it's going to come up. It's going to come up again in our next story. Yeah, in a way.
But now the thing I'm thinking of is flipping to the side of it being just a dream based off memories and, you know, people's what am I looking for? Kind of like worried thoughts after someone has passed. Looking back on your childhood spent with grandparents and grandparent-like figures, which Aunt W was in our case, is it just that you're a little kid and these people take you places, so a lot of your memories do revolve around that good time we used to have in the car together? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Although we spent way more time, like, in Aunt W's house, in different rooms, than we did in the car.
Yeah, because when she got older, too, she didn't drive anymore. She actually crashed her car straight into a police car and lost her license when she was...
I was with her once when she went right through a red light.
Oh, really?
I remember being shocked, and we were like, did you know that was a red light? And she was like, what?
Yeah, the old Bonneville.
Yeah. But... and I mean, more than that, even, that definitely could play a part in it, but it's one of these things where when things start recurring and I start hearing them more and more from different people, you know, is it something to do with traveling and traveling to the other side? Is there some sort of, I don't know. I'm not saying there is, I'm just saying it's something that keeps popping up, so it's something just to note.
A motif. For sure.
Motif. And now we're going to jump into a second submission from a listener. This is from Lucy, who's from across the pond, all the way from good old England.
The Brothers Mysterium.
But yeah, I just want to let you know about a few things that happened when my granddad passed away. When I was younger, my parents broke up when I was 2. The divorce was pretty rough, but from then on, my nan and granddad were really mine and my sister's rock. We used to go around the house every weekend, and he taught me how to ride a bike, he taught me how to swim, he taught me how to play cricket, football, taught me about cars and planes, and he really was just one of the best human beings that has probably ever walked the planet. So yeah, he was diagnosed with cancer, I think in about 2012. So he had it removed and he was okay after that. But I think because they messed him around so much at the hospital and he had to have a lot of operations, the anaesthetic has got quite a strong link with the onset of dementia as well, so I don't think that helped. We knew he was poorly, and then he was diagnosed with Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia, which is quite an aggressive form. So especially after that, we knew he didn't really have long left. Basically, when he passed, because he'd been poorly before, I sort of told myself, I'm fine, I don't need to grieve, I've already grieved, because he wasn't the person that he was when he passed. The dementia had really made him completely different. So yeah, I told myself I'd grieved, I went straight back to work. I didn't have any time off. I think I had one day and then the funeral, and that was it. It wasn't until, well, a couple of weeks, or I'd say about 2 months actually, after, I ended up going away for a couple of days to my friend's house in Brighton, and after throwing myself back into work, I kind of had nothing to do for 5 days. It sent me a little bit mad. I was really struggling to come to terms with the afterlife. I was really going through a bad spot, I'm not going to lie. My line of thinking was, if there is any chance of ever seeing my granddad again, I'm willing to take that chance and just find out now, which is really morbid, but I got out of it because of the dream that I had. So we was in a park, me and my sister, loads of my family members, and I was the only one that knew my granddad had passed. And in my dream, he got out of the car, like his car that he used to own. He got out of it, and I sort of turned around to everybody and I said, "Oh my God, Granddad, he's here, he's alive, he's here." And my dad turned around and said to me, because he was in the dream, he turned around and he said, "Don't be silly, Lucy, he's always going to be here." And that just, it made me feel so much better. I mean, even though he didn't talk in the dream, he was there, he was his young, brilliant self, and it was just really bizarre. But it helped me out of my mental state anyway. And I knew that was him trying to send me a message, definitely. A couple of months after that, again, my mental state went a little bit downhill. I've suffered with depression all my life, so I was obviously at quite a down spot at this minute. But I had another dream, and obviously after everything that I said about being in Brighton and being really struggling to come to terms with afterlife, this dream really did just mess with my head a little bit. So I was a young girl again. I was about 6 years old. I remember the specific haircut that I had, and it was just white all around me, just white cloud-like material, and there was just a big hand, and I knew it was my granddad's hand because he wore this ring on his little finger every day for his whole life. And his hand was big and it was coming down from the clouds, and I could hear his voice. I couldn't see his face or his body, but I could hear his voice, and he was saying, "Just grab my hand, Lucy, and we'll live forever." And I've always been a little bit obsessed with immortality as well. And I was in my dream, I was trying to grab his hand as much as I could, and he was just saying, he was like, "Grab my hand and we'll live forever. We can just be up here together forever, and you'll be fine." And I just couldn't grab his hand. Sorry, it's so stupid, it's like 2 years later. But yeah, I couldn't grab his hand. And I woke up from the dream just in absolute hysterics. I was crying, I was full-blown panic attack. So yeah, it did upset me quite a little bit, but now I look back and I think about it, I've analysed it, and I think that, again, it's my granddad trying to tell me that there is an afterlife, that he can come down and speak to me and give me messages. But I think the fact that I was so young in my dream, I think that was trying to say that I'm too young, I shouldn't be with him. at the moment. That's how I've taken it anyway, so I don't know how anybody else wants to. But so yeah, I had this dream where I had the 2 dreams, and then obviously I've come across your podcast and listened to your dream visitation episode, and I just thought it was brilliant. I really liked the idea that you went into about it being your subconscious, because after hearing that, it has kind of made me think, was that just because immortality and the afterlife, my granddad, are obviously 3 things that I think about quite a lot. I don't know whether it was maybe just my brain trying to put my own mind at rest. I'm not too sure, but I do like to think that it was him trying to tell me that there is something else. But yeah, I just really enjoyed your completely unbiased podcast about it, and to know that, I mean, when you go into the depth about everyone, I mean, every single person that's had a dream visitation, like you say, it's a very similar situation where they're their young, healthy self, and they tell someone that everything's going to be okay. But that's why the second dream, I think, scared me and shook me up so much, because it wasn't that. I didn't wake up feeling happy and like I'd had a bit of closure. I woke up feeling hysterical. But yeah, basically they're just the 2 short dreams that I wanted to tell you about. I really do enjoy your podcast. I've listened to every episode. Well, I've just seen the pet one that's been posted, so I need to catch up with that really. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and I will speak to you both soon.
Yeah, so that was Lucy. I want to thank her so much for reaching out to us, showing us support, listening to the show, and she has a fantastic accent, and she is a great storyteller, so thank you, Lucy.
Yeah, indeed.
What are your initial thoughts from hearing of Lucy's dream visitation?
So that's, yeah, she's the only one who seems to notice, like, something's off here. Grandpa's here. He shouldn't be.
Correct.
Which always reminds me of my dream visitation stories, like I said, where Aunt W shows up and I'm like, hey, you kind of are dead. You're not supposed to be here. Nobody else ever seems to mention that if they're in the area. So, again, that could be a commonality.
Another theme of these dream visitations.
Yeah, right. But then the question to ask is, how are these other people playing into the dream visitation? You know, if it is a real dream visitation and my mother's there, could I go to my mother and say, hey, did you have a dream last night where you were at a party and Aunt W and I were in the corner talking? Maybe she did, maybe she didn't.
That could be a shared dream, so we should look into that. Also, her grandfather, when he does show up, he's like getting out of his car. So once again, it's just that idea of cars and vehicles.
Did she mention a specific car in the story, do you remember?
She said it was the car that he had.
Right,
she
okay.
Knew it.
So it was the car that he had.
Yes.
Again, I think that goes back to what I said about the memory of grandparents and their cars.
Yeah.
People can always tie that. Our grandfather drove a Bravada. I can see it in my head perfectly. Aunt W drove a Bonneville.
That's true. But
Aunt G drove a...
Yeah, it's interesting, but why not anything else? Why not he used to always sit in this big leather chair? You know what I mean?
Because maybe
why is it always, why are so many people?
Because grandparents, if they don't, with most cases, I suppose they don't live with you, so the act of them traveling to you is all part of it.
Maybe.
Like you wait for grandpa or grandma or aunt
to show up,
whoever to show up in their car, and you see their car and you get all excited, and then they get out.
Yeah.
I think it all ties with the memories. That's just my skeptical side shining through there.
I mean, it could, but then how do you explain like the visitation where the guy's on a bus or on a train?
Okay, that I can't explain. It's not like, hey, grandpa used to come drive his train to our house,
And I mean, I don't know. In life, I don't associate that many people with cars. Maybe if it's like he always had this huge Cadillac and he would drive us around in it, then you'd be like, oh yeah, but like, I don't know. I guess, it's a good theory to throw out and something to consider. And if you know something, send us an email, thebrothersmysterium@gmail.com. Please continue.
I don't want to go too far off the cusp here, but also cars show up in other things too, like Bert with the reading with his dad. Car guy, cars in the reading.
Yeah.
Or you're just looking at it. I don't know.
But I think that tied more into him because he was a huge car guy. He was into cars.
Right.
So that fits his personality perfectly. And that's more of him saying, I was with you at those moments.
Right.
And that's like, oh, because he was a car guy.
Yeah,
if you're not
that
a
makes
car
sense.
person.
Not everyone's a car person. Aunt W wasn't all into cars or anything like that. So
No. But one thing that I did think was awesome from this story was the message. I like when you get a nice clear message. In Daniel's story, it's going to be tough, but she'll be okay. And in this one, she says like, oh, Granddad's here. I can't believe it. And they look at, she gets like the skunk eye. Obviously he's here. And somebody says, he's always going to be here.
it was her father who said it.
Yes. So I think it's really cool that even though the granddad doesn't deliver the message, it's her father. Don't be silly, Lucy. He's always going to be here.
Right.
He's always going to be around. And just the timing of it, she's depressed. She's feeling down on herself. But this message that came across kind of, re-sparked her. She's worrying about death, the afterlife. She's stressed out. She's in a dark place. She gets this message from the stream, and it kind of jumpstarts her back onto happier, better times. So it worked in that way. And another thing to note, classic dream visitation. The grandfather is his young, brilliant self, as she says. So he's
Right.
not like an old man who's been, battling cancer and had all these operations.
Yeah.
And is feeble. He's young. He's strong. He's healthy. So it's pretty cool. The message worked and put her back in a better state of mind.
The messages in these are actually really, really good ones. I would actually say I kind of wish we had these earlier to put in the original episode.
But that's why we let put
yeah.
it out, put out my story, whatever,
Leave the door open.
and then people are either inspired or they just hear it. Because another thing too is people are jumping on the Mysterium boat as we've already been sailing, So some people, it's like,
Right.
oh, I didn't know you guys had done this, which is
Yeah,
why I go
yeah.
back, listen to the library, listen to what we have.
But like the messages that come through in both these stories, the stories from both people are very vivid and meaningful.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas like, some other stories I've heard just from other people, asking around, things like that. It's always like, oh, I saw so and so,
Yeah.
and I interpreted it as they're doing well. But this
Right.
is like these they deliver like a nice, powerful, deep, almost life altering
Right.
message, especially in Lucy's case here.
Absolutely.
All right, so the cloud and the hand.
Yes. So let's discuss her second story, in which Lucy's a 6-year-old. She's in this cloudy wonderland. A big hand comes down. She knows it's her granddad. Recognizes the hand, the ring. She can hear his voice. She can't see him, only his hand. And the first thing that struck me about this was, if you listen to episode 10, Dream Visitations, very similar to Leah's story,
I thought the same thing.
which was the one where she can hear her grandfather kind of narrating a letter and sees like a pen writing,
Right.
but she didn't see him. He didn't appear as a ghost or as his young self or anything, but still delivered a message. So this was very similar to that dream. And again, he says, grab my hand, Lucy, and we'll live forever. We can be together forever.
It's very dramatic.
Very emotional. You can hear it. She's upset. She cries while telling it.
The fact that she can't see him too, like, symbolizes the disconnect.
Oh, yeah. And like she said, she couldn't grab his hand.
Right.
All she wanted to do was grab it.
Right.
And then, so she woke up and was upset by it and was like, oh, I didn't grab it. And she even said, not sure if she says it in this, but in an email when I was talking with her, she said, like, these visitation dreams are supposed to, you wake up and you feel good and a weight's been lifted and your conscience is clear. She said, I woke up and was, like, disturbed by it and felt weird, which is how I felt during my dream visitation.
Okay, now here's something. Someone may, and now I'm going the non-skeptical route, I'm saying this is, assuming this is all real, just as in real life, someone may try and convey a message, but it may not be how the person receives it. Her grandfather may have been like, hey, this might be like a nice gesture,
So it's
take
a
my hand and live
miscommunication.
forever, and she was like, didn't go over well, you know what I mean?
Well, but here's the good thing. In time, as she looks back, she puts a positive spin on it.
Right.
Where she says, maybe I was too young, which is why she was her 6-year-old self rather than her present age. And she took that as, it's not your time. You're not supposed to die yet. You don't need to grab my hand and cross over to the other side just yet. But when you do, he'll kind of be there waiting. They'll be together forever in the afterlife. So I'm kind of glad that she was able to
Right, kind of
say that, okay, that's the message from it, and take a more positive approach. And again, the timing of it was she was kind of depressed, feeling down. So it's another thing where, again, you have to wonder, is it the message is coming because her granddad knows, like, she needs me, she needs this message? Or is it because she's in a bad place, she's worried about
Preoccupation
death
with
and whatever else,
yeah.
and upset, and
Yeah.
it just happens. And she even says she's not sure, it could just be the subconscious, but she likes to think it was him. In this case, I like to think it was him too, just because it's such a great story.
Right.
She woke up hysterical, she was crying, but as we said, in time she kind of soaked it in, thought about it, reflected on it, and she did get some closure, which is always a good thing. Even though she was a little disturbed and stuff when she woke up, now she knows kind of she might not be alone on the other side. It gives her hope, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to throw out there?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for these two stories.
We will definitely do a follow-up at some point, so if you do have a Dream Visitation story, we'd still love to hear it. You can still contact us at Mysterium Bros on Twitter or Instagram, or you can email us at The Brothers Mysterium, or go to facebook.com/The Brothers Mysterium and send us a message. We never, ever fully stop a topic, so you can always reach out to us, but we do have so much to cover, a lot of good things, different phenomena, and events and occurrences we'll be covering, so this is the last Dream Visitation just for now. I just want to make that clear. And I want to wish everyone a happy holiday and a happy new year.
And I want to say we will return in the new year with regular full episodes again. Things kind of got crazy with the holidays here, so we kind of threw together some bonus material with stuff we had collected. But yeah, we'll be back with the full episodes before you know it.
Taking it home with Season 2 of The Brothers Mysterium, and you could show your support by rating and reviewing us on iTunes or whatever podcast provider you use. Thank you for listening to us, and have a happy holidays and a happy new year.